At RX Bar, they believe in simple nutrition without the BS. That's why they said no to artificial ingredients and yes to deliver intentional, transparent nutrition. Try their original 12-gram protein bar, the nut butter and oat bar, or minis. RX Bar, the proud sponsor of No BS. Use code RXBAR on rxbar.com for 25% off. Subject to full terms and conditions and to change. Valid until September 30, 2025, and may not be combined with other offers. See rxbar.com for full details and limitations.
Before we get started, I want to share one of my favorite time-saving tools, Descript. I use it to transcribe interviews, generate podcast show notes, create short video clips, and record easy-to-follow tutorials for my clients. It's also an incredibly helpful tool for grad students and busy professionals. You can use it to take notes on readings, prep for presentations, and make your work more accessible with captions and transcripts. If you're looking for a more efficient way to manage your workload, check out my affiliate link in the show notes. Let's say you're sitting down to work by your computer and you notice the time and you realize that you've been working for over 12 hours. Your eyes are burning, your brain feels like mush, you're tempted to do just one more thing, and then you stare at your to-do list and it's still this long, endless list. And then you realize, I cannot keep going like this. If you can resonate, then chances are you're either burnt out or on the road to burnout, and you need to find another way. And so for today's episode, I'm going to hopefully help you get there by introducing ways to redefine productivity when you're burnt out. Welcome to the award-winning Grad School Femtoring Podcast, the place for first-gen BIPOCs to listen in on inclusive grad school stories and learn about personal development and productivity tips. This is Dr. Yvette Martinez-Vu, a certified coach, consultant, and author, and I will be serving as your Femtor, providing you with insider knowledge to help you reach your personal and professional goals. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Grad School Femtoring Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Yvette. I feel like sighing right now because it has been a struggle, y'all. It has been a struggle for me to even sit down and record this. I have been struggling to focus. I have been feeling overwhelmed. And I am having to record this episode not just for you, but also for me so that I make sure that I don't burn out, especially now because we have so much going on, so much external stimuli, so much fear, so much uncertainty with what's going on in the world and in this country that it can make it hard to do work. And on the other hand, for some folks, they might really dive into their work for the sake of ignoring what's going on. It's almost like a coping mechanism to what's going on. And we're trying to find a good in-between space where you can still do work that matters, but not burn yourself out. So for today, again, I want you to really rethink, what does it mean to get work done sustainably? What does it mean to get work done in a way that is a form of resistance to systemic barriers? What is a way that you can preserve yourself? What is a way that you can integrate the work you do in a way that also accounts for collective care? So I'm going to start with sharing some insights around what causes burnout. So let's start with some context. The key thing here is you recognizing that burnout isn't about a personal failing. Burnout isn't about personal weakness. Burnout doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It actually often stems from disconnection, from lack of recognition, from systemic barriers and systemic pressures. And it's not just about doing too much work. And if you're first gen, if you're BIPOC, if you're neurodivergent, if you're non-traditional, then you're likely facing even more challenges because you might be navigating higher education on your own. You might be balancing multiple responsibilities, family commitments, community expectations, and you are probably feeling this stronger physical toll of systems not designed for you. That's why we can't go on business as usual, because we are being harmed by what's going on right now. And it actually hurts when folks don't acknowledge what's going on around us. And then for my neurodivergent folks, burnout doesn't look the same for you as everybody else around you either. Because neurodivergent burnout, and specifically autistic burnout, looks like chronic exhaustion, sensory overload, a worsened sense of executive dysfunction, and even losing skills, like losing the skill to mask. What happens when all of a sudden you can't mask in academic spaces? People might start to misinterpret you. They might think that you are disconnected, that you are cold, that you are blunt, that you disrespect authority or resist authority, etc. I've been there. I've heard all kinds of things from my own personal experience and from other folks I know who are autistic and who have experienced autistic burnout. So please, if you resonate with this, if you want to learn more, I encourage you to learn more about the differences between neurotypical and neurodivergent burnout. So I'm sharing this context because the goal of this episode is not to encourage you to do more. It's to encourage you to do things differently. It's to encourage you to recognize and honor your humanity, even if it means doing less, even if it means disappointing others, especially those who benefit from your burnout. So let's talk about some foundations of sustainable productivity that can help you with redefining productivity in a way that will help you to overcome burnout. So I'm going to talk about 4 things. The first is this idea of making sure you're doing work that is values aligned. So you want to know what your core values are. These are like your fundamental beliefs. And you want to make sure that the work that you're doing aligns with those values. Because when the work that you do aligns with your values, that can help to increase your motivation, that can help to improve your mental health, that can just help overall with you feeling a sense of purpose. The second thing I want to mention is energy and energy management. This comes up a lot in my one-on-one coaching sessions. A lot of folks come to me thinking that they need support with their time management, and then we take a look at what's going on in their day-to-day life, and I realize actually this is more about energy management. Because a lot of folks, they try to squeeze as much as they can into a workday, and then they find themselves at the end of the week completely depleted and unable to do anything other than rest. So instead, what would it look like if you started to notice your body's natural rhythms? If you started to recognize and accept your body's limitations, like what is the maximum number of hours you can reasonably work without worsening or causing burnout? What are your body's rhythms, not just day to day, but throughout the weeks or even in a month? Because our cycles, especially those of us with the uterus, will impact our energy. Other things that impact our energy, what we eat and our nutrition, our sleep, our stress. And chances are you're first gen BIPOC, low income, neurodivergent, non-traditional, you're going to be experiencing more stress than a lot of the other individuals around you. So you want to be aware of the things that are impacting your energy and account for that. The third thing I want to mention in terms of foundations and these concepts that can be helpful is really incorporating self-compassion into the work that you do. This means being kind to yourself. And being kind to yourself can look like accepting when you have failed and using it as a learning lesson. So instead of avoiding failure, instead of trying to you're making yourself feel really bad if you've experienced failure. You instead use it as an opportunity for growth. What can I learn from this? How can I get better? That is a self-compassionate way to pursue your goals. So being kind to yourself when you can't go on business as usual, being kind to yourself when things are harder for you to do than others, being kind to yourself when your body demands rest. It's not something you earn, your body needs it. Are you feeling stuck in your academic or professional journey? Whether you're in the thick of grad school, preparing to apply, or navigating a career transition, you don't have to do this alone. I offer one-on-one coaching for first-gen BIPOC grad students and professionals who want compassionate structure, personalized support, tools and strategies, and tangible results. Together, we can co-create action plans that center your lived experience, your capacity, and your long-term goals. Whether you need help with time management, confidence building, motivation, or big picture career decisions, I've got you. Clients I've worked with have passed their qualifying exams, finished and defended their dissertations, mapped out career changes, and built sustainable systems. And most importantly, they've also felt seen and supported throughout the process. All of my coaching packages include access to a resource library, voice memo support, and guidance in between sessions so you're never on your own. If you're ready to invest in yourself, visit gradschoolfemtoring.com/coaching to learn more and book a free consultation. I'd love to support you in making aligned, confident moves in your academic and professional life. And then the fourth foundation of sustainable productivity that I want you to start to integrate into your workload is really thinking about the work that you do as part of your greater community. This is not something that you're doing alone. And instead, you can do better work when you work with others. So what does this look like? This looks like checking in on others, having others check in on you. This can look like mutual aid. This can look like support groups. This can look like co-working sessions. This can look like having a personal board of advisors or your personal council of people you go to when you need a green light on you making a tough decision. So just making sure that you are part of a greater collective, that you have access to community while you're getting your work done is essential. So now I'm going to talk about 4 strategies that tie into these ideas related to sustainable productivity. So for the first one, this idea of values alignment, can you check in with yourself? Can you ask yourself, and you can do this daily, weekly, monthly, what did I do today that aligned with my values, or this week, or this month, etc.? Where did I act out of obligation and out of my values? And what's one small values-centered shift that I can take, either tomorrow or next week or next month? The pacing really depends on you and what works for you. But the point here is to check in on your values, because you'll notice where there is friction, usually there's a misalignment there too. The second strategy is doing an energy audit. I have my clients do this often, and this is where you track your activities, the things that you're doing regularly, what gives you energy, boosts your energy, replenishes your energy. What's more neutral? It doesn't really give you energy, but it doesn't really drain you. And what's energy draining? And this means it just sucks the life out of you. Why do you need to know this? Because ideally, you want to let go of the things that drain you or do less of them. Sometimes we can't. And if that's the case, if we can't, then you want to align those draining tasks with the times that you have the most energy. This is something I actually talked about in a separate podcast episode on the ABC method of time management. I think that's what it's called, where you think about your day as A, B, and C time. A time is when you have the most energy, B is when you have less, C is when you have the least, and then align your tasks that require the most energy with A time, less energy with B time, the least energy with C time. So if you want to learn more about that, you can check out that episode. I can link it in the show notes. Another thing actually that I'll link in the show notes is a blog post that I wrote. That's one of my more popular ones on how to identify and overcome academic burnout. So I'll make sure to link those two things in the show notes. But for right now, again, you want to make sure that you align. If you can't get rid of the energy draining things, align that with the times that you have more energy. And also make sure to integrate energy giving activities into your schedule. Why? Because it's not just a reward, it's a necessity. So make sure that you include these things into your calendar or into your routine. So that way you have a good balance between the draining things and the things that boost your energy. Okay, the third strategy, and again, what's more important here is the reframe than the strategies, but I'm sharing the actionable strategies because I know a lot of you, these are the episodes that get the most plays. Like, you love this stuff, and it kind of makes sense because I love this stuff. I love me a good strategy because I implement them, I execute, and then, some of these things are really helpful. I take what works and I leave what doesn't, and I hope you'll do the same. So let me share another strategy. This one's tied to self-compassion. And this is where you give yourself micro moments of compassion. So anytime you notice you're being critical of yourself, you're being hard on yourself, you're feeling bad, you're feeling guilty, you're tearing yourself down, I hope that you can build this habit of pausing and asking yourself, is this something I would say to a friend? Do I have evidence to prove that this is true? Is there a way I can reframe this in a way that I can learn from it? And you can do this by pairing it with the grounding practice. If you are someone who is more ritualistic, that can help too. So you can put your hand on your heart. You can take a deep breath. You can light a candle. That's my favorite. Prayer and candles resonate a lot with me and my upbringing. Just do something that's culturally aligned, that really feels good for you, and stop and just kind of question yourself, like gently call yourself in that moment. And I do this with my clients all the time. And they say I have a good balance of like being direct and holding them accountable, and while also being compassionate with them. So yeah, I will gently call them in and be like, okay, I noticed you said this. Do you have evidence to prove that that's true? Is there a way that you can reframe this? Would you be saying this to a friend or a loved one right now? So just keep that in mind. It's not easy, I know, because in the moment, your first inclination isn't to pause and to question it, but it does get better over time. And if you really, really need that extra reminder, I highly recommend having a visual aid somewhere. So maybe it's a Post-it with these questions, or maybe it's something that you print out and put somewhere that you look at regularly next to your workspace. Maybe it's a wallpaper on your phone, just to remind yourself. If it's not a habit yet, you can do that to remind yourself to build that habit, or you can even pair it with something else that you're doing, of like stopping, pausing, and asking yourself, was I critical of myself today? And if so, what can I do to challenge that? All right, the last thing I'm going to mention in terms of strategies is tied to community care. And here, I just highly recommend building your support system. That can look like connecting with a peer every week. That can look like your support group. It could look like a writing group. It can look like a co-working buddy. It can look like someone that you share a goal, a win, or a struggle with. I remember in graduate school, I had a Google document that I shared with a friend of mine. We were both struggling in grad school, and we created this daily gratitude practice. So in that document, we would name 3 things we were grateful for every single day. And because I knew she was filling it out and she was expecting me to fill it out, and we were going to read each other's, and then we would check in every week, I knew I had to fill it out. So I made it a practice of filling it out regularly. And guess what? Implementing that daily gratitude practice changed my life. Because and it wasn't overnight. It was just slowly I started to notice more things that I was grateful for. And it wasn't in a toxic positivity kind of way of like, I'm only going to focus on the positive. Trust me. That's why I had therapy the whole time, because not everything was positive. There were so many rough times in grad school, but it just helped me to have that added perspective of like what truly mattered in my life, even beyond my current environment and even beyond my current graduate program. But in any case, the point is to build your support system, whatever feels right for you. So that was the episode. Just as a reminder, you can redefine productivity in a way that owns all of who you are, in a way that resists systemic barriers, in a way where you can honor your energy, your culture, your capacity, your community, and you can start small. Doesn't have to be an overnight thing. It doesn't have to be this huge thing. Something tiny that you could do right now. Choose one strategy. If you didn't like the ones I talked about, that's fine. You can come up with your own. But focus on doing work that's sustainable rather than perfect. And I need to remind myself this too, because my inner recovering perfectionist comes out sometimes too. So I invite you to, if you resonated with this episode, please share it with a friend who could benefit from it, support one another, and remember that you belonging in spaces matters, your success matters, and your well-being is not something that's negotiable. It's non-negotiable. Rest is part of your productivity strategy. So make sure you take care of yourself. Let's take care of each other. And that's it for today. As always, I'll talk to you all next time. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, here are 3 ways you can support the show. The first is to make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. The second way is to get your copy of my free resource kit linked in my show notes. This kit includes tools, worksheets, and podcast playlists on all things grad school, productivity, and personal development. The third way to support my show is to follow me on social media. You can find me on Instagram with the handle @Grad School Femtoring and on LinkedIn by searching my name. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.